Got it.
Yeah. But even in poorer countries, it actually costs less.
I think you just heard the head.
Yeah, well, it's not. It's actually latex, so it's.
Oh, okay. Sorry, okay.
But I don't think it's hurt. You know.
So are you the organizer of this?
It's not a real animal. Animals actually do feel pain. Sentient beings, yeah. Yeah, I'm the organizer.
But where do you draw the line? I mean, that's kind of again the more like a philosophical question, because I understand we value all lives for sure, but at which point would you think that some creatures maybe don't feel pain, or maybe where it doesn't?
Any animal that has a central nervous system, any vertebrate animal.
Vertebrate.
The very purpose of the nervous system is to
central
express
nervous
pain.
system.
The central nervous system is so that the animal feels pain, and the organism feels pain, and reacts to that pain by trying to escape whatever the cause of that pain is. So sentience essentially is the ability to feel, right? And so I don't know at what point it ends. It could be argued that maybe invertebrates don't feel pain, like insects. Like that's not as scientifically valid, but any vertebrate organism feels pain for sure. They have the same nervous system, the same brain to send the pain signals that we do.
So
this
okay.
Is science.
So it's okay to eat insects then. I'm just trying to.
I personally wouldn't say it is, because it's undeterminable whether they feel pain. But I think it's
insects. Okay. All right.
So I mean, how far do you want it? I mean, I don't know what that has to do with animals that obviously feel pain, that suffer, and protesting against that. If we know for a fact that they feel pain, and we're here to focus on that and to worry about that, then why? What argument could there be against that? In other words, we know that they feel pain. We know that it's unnecessary to kill them for any product that we want to use them for. So what moral justification can there be for continuing to treat them like this?
I would say hunger.
That's not a moral justification. That's a selfish motive. That's not a moral justification. You want to talk about philosophy? Hunger is not a moral justification. That's a selfish impulse.
What's the choice?
Well. I mean, if you want to talk about philosophy, hunger is not a moral justification, is it? It's kind of a selfish impulse, right? I mean, you could eat lots of other things that don't involve the pain and suffering of other living beings. There's all kinds of vegan alternatives to anything you can imagine today.
For example?
Chicken, beef, pork, anything that you can imagine. Cheese, like throw a name at me, throw a product at me that you like to eat that's based in meat or dairy. I can show you a viable substitution that's vegan, nutritious, healthy, better for you, and obviously not participating in this.
I see. And it implies to the entire world, or it implies only to the countries where you do have alternatives?
Oh, I understand where you're going. That this is like white privilege or something. I mean, look.
No. It's not about white. It's about the developed countries versus non-developed countries.
Well, even in non-developed countries, we can eat rice and beans. It's like full protein. It's a completely healthy food. It's a matter of ethical choice. I mean, everywhere in the world, and I've been to 47 countries, people can eat vegan and eat very healthy without eating, bourgeois vegan food. Vegan food is rice and beans. Vegan food is spaghetti. You can eat, there's all kinds of protein in vegetables, the same amount that you would find in beef. So, I understand what you're saying about this being kind of like an upper middle white type of a thing, but even those countries can eat rice and beans or something else that would give them complete nutrition and wouldn't involve violence against animals.
So you referred to bourgeois. I just didn't understand in which context you do.
It seems to me like you were leading to the fact that this is like kind of like a privileged country first world thing, which is kind of nonsense. Because anywhere you go in the world, and like I said, I've been to 47 countries, you can eat completely whole foods without killing animals and participating in violence.
Have you been to Africa?
I was in Morocco once, yes, and
well,
I was in Madagascar once.
I'm talking about Black Africa.
Okay. No, I'm not. Well, I was in South Africa one time.
Well,
so no, I've been to any of the countries in the.
Yeah, I'm talking about the countries where people. See, she wants chicken. I'm gonna deny this lovely lady who wants to be eating chicken.
Everybody has a right to choose to make their own choices,
No, but anyway, so. You would not want, let's say, starving Africans slaughter animals, as he would put it, just to survive. So
let me say it to you this way.
Draw the line.
Let me make a point here. Do you know that most of the soybeans and all these other grains that we produce in the Amazon and so forth, mostly are fed to whom?
you're talking about feds to animals?
You're right.
Your point?
Okay, so 97% of the grains that are produced in the Amazon, the soybeans and the corn and so forth, goes to feed animals, all right, that are fattened up so that people can eat meat. If that grain were to go directly to feed people, you would end world hunger. So the reason that there's hunger in the world is because people want to eat meat, because wealthy Western people and people from developed countries want to eat meat. If they were to actually feed all that grain, the cows can eat 50 pounds of grain in one day. If all that grain were to go to people, you wouldn't have any starvation in the world. So that's not a valid argument either.
So you think that the kids are suffering, literally dying from hunger in Africa, for example, is because of what, capitalism?
Because the grain that could feed those children is going to feed and fatten animals, agricultural animals, to feed humans meat, as opposed to feeding that grain directly to people that would give them complete nutrition. So the starvation in the third world is the result of the excess of the first world. By the desire to eat meat, not the necessity, but the desire to eat meat and animal products. If that grain were going to feed those people directly, as opposed to being passed through animals to become animal protein, then we would solve world hunger. So that's not really a valid reason either.
Well, see, I came from the USSR, and we hardly had any food. I mean, the shelves were empty, and this is not even the worst of it. I mean, look at North Korea, where people resort to cannibalism. China, the worst famine ever happened was in China, where 35 million Chinese died during this, period of industrialization. I forgot what it's called. A great leap forward. So, I mean, why do people die from hunger in the first place? I mean, it happened. They had to resort to cannibalism, not eating even other animals. I mean, think about it. Eating human flesh, other humans.
I'm not sure how that relates to the present argument your question was about the starving kids in Africa. Would I want them to eat meat? No, not if wealthier countries were to stop eating meat that was produced by all that grain that was going to feed those animals. If we would just give that grain directly to humans, that would be the solution to world hunger right now. I'm not talking about what happened in
the reason it's relevant is because they're using the word world, and I'm giving you examples of how people live in other parts of the world, such as North Korea today, for example, or Cuba today, or China in the past. So why, I mean, back then, wouldn't you kind of encourage, let's say, those poor Chinese?
We're not talking about the past. I mean, we could talk about how terrible it was to, for the African slaves to be brought here and be forced to work for other people and build infrastructure for a country that they weren't even full citizens of or considered to be full citizens. That's fine. We can talk about all the atrocities of the past. I'm talking about today, right now. Well, if we were to feed all that grain, there would not be any starvation in the world. We would feed it to people as opposed to feeding it to animals, so that people like you that like to eat animals can continue to indulge themselves in something completely unnecessary. So if anybody's responsible for the starvation in the world, it's the meat eaters. People that eat meat. Yeah, people that eat meat. Because of all that grain, like I said about 4 times, we're going to actually feed humans as opposed to feeding fattened animals, there wouldn't be any starvation in the world. There'd be an excess of grain. So there'd be an excess of healthy proteins for everyone.
So you don't think it's maybe the system, let's say capitalism versus socialism, like North Korea, like USSR that I came from, or China, for example? You think the system has nothing, political system has nothing to do with it?
Of course it does, but unless there's a popular awakening of consciousness, the political system won't change. The politicians do the will of what they think is going to keep them in power. So if the average human being like you and I decided to make a change in our diet and we began to expand this idea to other people and this actually began to take place, these changes would occur on their own.
By the way, talking about
so it's the responsibility of the individual.
Well, can you explain that to Kim Jong-un, for example?
What does Kim Jong-un have to do with us doing an animal rights protest?
No,
I'm trying to understand.
No, it's just.
I mean, you're taking this further and further away now. Like, I mean, I have no control over what goes on in North Korea, and neither do you. But you know what you do have control over? Your choice is whether they contribute to suffering or alleviate suffering in the world.
Okay.
I don't know why you're going off in that direction
because you use the word world again. That's why. The only reason I'm bringing it up because you keep on using world.
You can pull out exceptional countries where there are dictatorships and talk about Iran and these individual cases, but in general, most people do have freedom, and most people can choose to eat meat or not eat.
It's not the way around,
and there's people that throughout history, no matter what period of history or how evolved they were, there's always been people that have stood up against these type of atrocities in every phase of history. So it really does come down to individual choices. For most of the world. I mean, of course, there's always exceptions, yeah. You can bring up North Korea and Cuba, and that's fine. the people do have less freedom there.
So when we talk about choices, then let's say people who are meat eaters, they have a choice of eating meat.
Right, that's a choice.
That's a choice. Okay,
Right.
and you're okay with it?
Huh?
And you're okay
No,
with
I'm not
it?
okay with that choice. Like, I respect your right to have a choice, but I do not
Okay.
respect your choice if you're a meat eater,
Okay.
because you're contributing
Okay,
to
that's
unnecessary suffering like this. Look,
All right.
have you seen this? Is that okay with you? Is it okay with you? Are you okay with that? Is that okay? If you have an alternative to participating in that, wouldn't a decent moral person who thinks about the world that they live in make a more, look, have a look at what you're trying to defend here. Yeah, that's the industrialization of life. Taking life and turning it into a commodity. It's just merely weight. There's no individual sentience. The individual life doesn't matter at all. What matters is making money. Look it, that's a baby right there. Is that do you approve of that?
Did you ever eat meat in your life?
When I was young and I didn't know any better, because I was a child, I didn't have the right to discern. I grew up in an Italian-American family. My mother put meatballs on the table. I ate it. But as I got older and began to see how this went and see how things really were, I decided to make a choice that was more ethical and more noble and more compassionate. And I think anybody with eyes, especially children, could look at that and say, you know, that's messed up and wrong.
So what is the trigger that made you change from meat eater to a vegan?
Well, I saw a video. I was in the Navy at the time. I was 19 years
Navy?
old. Yeah, I saw a video.
That's awesome.
We were on board a ship. Yeah, we were in the Mediterranean Sea. And it was a VHS in those days. I saw a video of a cow being slaughtered, and I disagreed very strongly with the idea that was okay for somebody to eat a hamburger, to cause the most rudimentary suffering and pain of a living organism, a living being that had a right to be here just as we do. A sentient living being that if you treat them with love from the time that they're born will behave just like your dog, come running up to you and lick your face and do all those things that a dog will do. To treat a living being like that with no moral justification other than our hunger or the way we taste, to me, it just didn't qualify.
What made you to sign up for the Navy? I absolutely respect our military.
You know, now we'll get into my child. I mean, I was a messed up teenager with a lot of problems. I got in some trouble, and the final time I went to court, the judge was like, you can either go to jail for 6 months or go to the Navy. I went to the military. It was never necessarily patriotism. It was more like a kid that came from a trailer park trying to escape his reality, and it was my last alternative, but it turned out to be a good thing because it expanded my view of the world.
Navy is absolutely a fantastic thing.
Yeah. Okay. So in any case, like, you know, the reality is this is what we are here to talk about today.
So,
animal abuse.
You don't do that for a living, right? Because you speak so well.
I run a language school.
Oh, okay.
I have my own business. I run a language school. I teach languages.
What languages do you speak?
I speak Portuguese, Spanish, some Italian, and of course English.
English, of course.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to learn how to speak some Slavic languages, but that's a whole different ballgame. Yeah. So I run my own business. We are not here looking for money. This is not charity. We're just out here to educate the public on better choices, more humane choices.
Мы можем говорить по-русски.
You got me. You got me.
I said we can speak Russian.
Well, you can. Have at it. Have at it. I'll do the best I can to accompany you.
All right, sounds like a plan. So that's.
How much money was it?
All right, well, thank you for the information. It was nice talking to you.
And you as well.
And thank you for your service, even though it wasn't patriotic, based on patriotism. I'm a patriotic American, coming from USSR originally.
I understand,
but you know, still.
I can understand why you would appreciate this from the government, because what goes on in Russia is terrible.
Absolutely horrible.
You know, it's terrible, and what that monster is doing now is awful.
Absolutely.
To start a war on European soil after how many years of peace?
It's nothing new. Russia started the Second World War together with their German allies. They crushed the Eastern Europe, wherever the Soviets went, the Russians went. There's nothing but death and misery and destruction. It's just awful.
Why is this now? Why picking on a little country like Ukraine? You got the largest landmass in the world with all these resources. What, you can't be happy? You can't be happy. He wants to restore the old Russian Empire.
Russians. That's exactly right.
It's terrible.
Well, it is. It's horrible.
And oppressing his own people as well.
That's exactly right.
Anybody who protests against him, it's a one-party system.
That's right.
And anybody who protests against him, it's the mafia takes over. It's a mafia.
We call it dictatorship. That's absolutely right.
It's really sad.
Yes, it is. All right.
Well, nice talking to you.
Same here.
Yeah, you're welcome to take any of the literature that you like here.
Sure. Well, I mean, with all due respect, I still like meat. Actually, not so much meat. I eat fish. I eat salmon daily. I love
fish
salmon.
Feel pain too, and we also have alternatives to that as well. So
well,
it really just comes down to individual decision. If you have a heart and you see that this is wrong and terrible and most importantly unnecessary, continue to contribute to it. That's on you.
Yeah, I know.
That's on
you. It's a free country. I know.
It's
God bless it.
Yeah.
This guy's a troll. This guy doesn't care. This guy doesn't care about animal suffering right here.
You think so?
No, you don't. Well, it's obvious you don't care. I mean, you talk to him for 15 minutes, and I'd like to think that.
Well, I talked to you 15 minutes as well.
Yeah, you did. You did. You took 15 minutes of my time, and I gave it to you. So.
Okay, well, I appreciate it.
It's not a necessity to survive.
Right.
Look at this guy. I think he's animal eaters #1 right here. Yeah. You like killing animals, right?
Actually, salmon. I eat salmon every day.
You like killing animals?
I love eating salmon.
Here we go.
You love eating animals.
Get your cameras ready,
I've
guys.
never heard that one before. Oh.
What's that? What's that?
Get your camera ready, Paul. Here we
What
go.
happened? What happened?
It'll be amusing.
Cops?
Probably called them, made a false accusation.
Oh, you mean against you?
Probably, yeah.
Oh. But do you have to apply? I mean, to have a permit to protest? How does it work? I mean, I assume that, for any protest, it's legal.
Regardless,
right,
regardless.
as Americans to protest.
Yeah.
We're not allowed
to
to block
protest.
the storefront.
We're not going
to
in
block
there.
people from going in.
I see.
That's
That's
like the
because you
protocol.
saw people
This
going
is
in
the
and
public
coming out,
sidewalk.
and so we were obstructing their
So it's legal. Okay.
That's the owner.
Let them fucking lie. Let them lie.
The owner
Let them
of I
lie.
see.
They're gonna get it right back in their faces today. Let them fucking lie. Let's see what happens now.